Welcome back, everyone, to Everyday Tech Explained. For this deep dive, we're going to be looking at the Tourbox Lite.
The Tourbox Lite.
Yeah, and we'll be focusing on a review from Fstoppers.
Okay.
You know, the photography website.
Yep, I'm familiar.
So if you're into photography, video editing, and you want to kind of like supercharge your workflow, this is a tool that you might want to check out.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's, all those little like minute tasks that you have to do with your mouse and keyboard. It kind of brings it all into one little device.
Oh, very cool.
So just a quick reminder, we're at 49 subscribers. So if you like this kind of content, hit that like button to subscribe to the channel. That would really help us out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the reviewer for this one, Ivor Rackham, he already owns the more advanced Tourbox.
Okay.
The Elite.
The Elite. Okay.
So he was going into this kind of thinking like, do I really need another Tourbox?
Right.
But he actually had an aha moment using the Elite.
Interesting.
Yeah, so let's get into that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
What makes the Elite stand out for him?
Yeah, especially since he already has, the top of the line model, so to speak. What was it about the Lite that kind of grabbed him?
Well, he said that the Lite's simplicity was a major plus for him, and that he felt like the Elite with all the bells and whistles was almost overkill for his everyday, editing workflow.
Sure. I can see that sometimes too many options can kind of slow you down.
Exactly.
Too many choices.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there are different Tourbox models.
Yeah.
Could you quickly run those down for me?
Yeah, so you have the Elite, which is the top-of-the-line model.
Okay.
The Neo kind of sits in the middle.
Right, in between.
And then you have the Elite, which is what we're focusing on today.
Right, and this is like the entry level, or is it?
You could say that, yeah, it has a lot of features, but it's more streamlined.
Gotcha. So it's still feature-rich, but
Yeah.
maybe a little less intimidating for a new user.
Exactly, yeah. And he was actually really impressed with the Lite's build quality.
Okay.
He described it as feeling solid and reliable, which is important.
Right.
Yeah, if you're going to be using it all the time.
Right. You don't want something that's going to break on you.
Exactly. You want something that's going to hold up.
Yeah.
And he said the injection molded plastic with a laser texture matte finish.
Okay.
It just felt really good in the hand.
I see. Yeah, that tactile feel is really important.
Yep. And even though it has all these physical controls, it also has a really helpful on-screen interface.
Okay.
They call it a HUD.
HUD, okay.
And it shows you exactly what each button and dial does, which is great for new users.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like a visual guide to help you learn the device.
Exactly, yeah. Or if you're working in different programs.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Like you don't have to remember what each button does.
Right.
It just shows you right there on the screen.
That's smart, especially as you said, if you're using it for different programs, you don't want to have to relearn it every time you switch.
Right. And he actually said that he stopped using the HUD altogether after a while.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because the layout became so intuitive.
So it just became second nature.
Exactly.
That's really cool. That's kind of the goal, right?
Yeah.
For a device like that, is to just become an extension of your hand.
Yeah, you don't even have to think about it.
Right, you just kind of instinctively know what to do.
And even though Ivor was already familiar with Tourbox from using the Elite, he emphasized that new users shouldn't feel intimidated by the Lite.
Okay.
He said it takes time to master any new tool,
Sure.
but that the time investment pays off in the long run.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like anything new,
Right, it's like learning keyboard shortcuts or a new software program. It takes a little bit of effort up front,
Exactly, but once you get it.
but then it saves you so much time in the long run.
Right, and he really put the Tourbox Lite through its paces.
Oh, wow.
Like he customized it for a whole bunch of programs, not just Lightroom and Photoshop,
I see.
but like On1 Photo Raw,
Okay.
DxO Photolab 7, DaVinci Resolve,
Wow, whole range.
even web browsers and Microsoft Office.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's pretty versatile.
That's really interesting because it suggests that it's not just for photographers and video editors,
Right.
but it could be useful for anyone who spends a lot of time on a computer.
Exactly.
If you're doing any kind of creative work or even just everyday tasks,
Yeah.
it could be a potential time saver.
And here's something that might interest our left-handed listeners.
Okay.
Ivor found it really easy to use the Tourbox Lite with his left hand
Oh, very cool.
while keeping his right hand free for his mouse or tablet.
That's great. As someone who's left-handed, I always appreciate it when companies think about that.
Yeah.
Because so often, tools are designed with right-handed people in mind.
Right.
But this sounds like it's truly ambidextrous.
Yeah.
You can use it however you're comfortable.
It seems like he mainly used the Tourbox Lite for tasks like raw development and asset management.
Okay, can you explain what those are?
Yeah, so raw development is basically the process of taking the raw image data
Okay.
that's captured by your camera
Right.
and transforming it into a usable image file.
So it's like the digital equivalent of developing film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said it drastically sped up things like adjusting sliders and flagging images,
I see.
which can be pretty tedious with a mouse and keyboard.
Right. And asset management? What's that?
Asset management is all about like organizing and keeping track of your photos and videos.
Okay, so it's like having a good filing system.
Yeah, like adding keywords and ratings to your images.
Right.
Sorting them into folders.
Right.
Making sure you can find what you're looking for.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And he said the Tourbox Lite can be programmed with shortcuts to speed up those common asset management tasks.
Oh, that's cool.
So instead of clicking through multiple menus to add a keyword or rate an image,
Right.
you could just do it with a single button press on the Tourbox.
Gotcha.
And he also talked about using the Tourbox Lite with Photoshop,
Oh, yeah.
specifically for controlling brush size and hardness.
Right.
Even though he's not a heavy Photoshop user,
Yeah.
he found those controls very intuitive
Interesting.
and helpful.
So even for someone who doesn't use Photoshop all the time,
Right.
having those dedicated controls can make a difference.
Exactly.
Just makes things a little bit easier.
And here's a key takeaway that I found really interesting.
Okay.
He actually preferred the Lite's simplicity
Okay.
compared to the Elite.
The Elite. Wow.
He said it felt more intuitive and less overwhelming,
Interesting.
which made him more efficient overall.
So less is more in this case.
Yeah, I think so.
Having fewer options, but the right options
Yeah.
can actually be more beneficial.
But it wasn't all perfect.
Oh, okay.
He did point out a few drawbacks.
What were those?
It's wired only,
Wired only.
no Bluetooth option.
No Bluetooth.
And he felt the dials could have a bit more resistance, especially since they lack the haptic feedback of the Elite.
I see. Yeah, some people really like that tactile feedback.
Right, so let's break down like his main points.
Okay.
Under what I liked, he listed simple layout, great design, high quality build,
Okay. All good things.
fingerprint resistant finish,
Well, that's always nice.
easy programming,
Good.
cool feature where you hover your cursor over a slider to select it,
Oh, that's interesting.
affordability,
Of course.
ambidextrous use,
We talked about that.
and minimal packaging.
Okay, so environmentally friendly?
Yeah, and under what could be improved.
Okay.
He mentioned that he would have liked the dials to have a tighter action
Right.
to compensate for the lack of haptic feedback,
Sure.
and that the presets could be better designed to cut down on setup time.
Okay, so a little more streamlined in terms of the setup process.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So overall, it sounds like a pretty positive review.
Yeah, his final verdict was actually really interesting.
Oh, is that?
He was seriously considering switching from the Elite to the Lite
Wow.
for its simplicity and effectiveness.
Really?
Yeah.
So even though he has the more advanced model,
Right.
he's thinking about downgrading, so to speak.
Yeah, because he just felt like for what he does on a daily basis,
Right?
the Lite was just a better fit.
It was more efficient
Yeah.
for his workflow.
And it makes you think like sometimes less is more,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Especially when it comes to like creative tools.
Right. You don't want to be bogged down by...
You don't need all the bells and whistles sometimes.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit more about like the specifics of how he used it?
Sure.
Like you mentioned raw development.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain what that is for our listeners who might not be familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. So raw development is essentially the process of taking the raw image data that your camera captures and turning it into an actual usable image file.
Okay.
So you're adjusting things like the exposure, the white balance, the colors, the sharpness.
So it's like the digital equivalent of developing film?
Exactly. Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Okay.
You're taking that raw information and you're kind of shaping it into the final image.
Gotcha.
And the Tourbox Lite really helps with that because instead of having to use your mouse to like click and drag sliders, you can use these physical dials and knobs on the Tourbox to make those adjustments.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's much more tactile, it's much more precise.
So you can really fine tune those adjustments.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. And it just gives you a much more hands-on feel
I like that.
for the editing process.
And you mentioned asset management as well.
Yeah.
What does that involve?
So asset management is all about organizing and keeping track of your photos and videos.
Okay.
So it's things like adding keywords and ratings to your images.
Right.
Sorting them into folders.
Making sure you can find what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like having a really good filing system
Gotcha.
for all of your visual content.
So you don't lose anything.
Right. And you
Yeah.
can easily find what you need when you need it.
And how does the Tourbox Lite help with that?
Well, the Tourbox Lite, you can program it with shortcuts to speed up a lot of those common asset management tasks.
So instead of like clicking through multiple menus to add a keyword.
Right? You can just hit a button on the Tourbox and it's done.
Wow, that's nice.
So it just eliminates a lot of those little steps.
Yeah, all those little clicks add up.
Exactly. And it can save you a lot of time in the long run.
He also highlighted the Tourbox Lite's usefulness in Photoshop.
Okay.
Even though he's not a heavy Photoshop user.
Right.
He specifically mentioned using it to control brush size and hardness.
Yeah.
Which for our listeners who aren't Photoshop experts,
right.
Those are like essential settings for digital painting and retouching.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are like fundamental brush settings.
And he found those controls very intuitive and helpful.
That's great.
Even though he doesn't use Photoshop all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that
it could still be helpful.
Even if you're not a power user,
right?
Having dedicated controls for those common tasks
makes a big difference.
Can really speed up your workflow.
So it seems like the Tourbox Lite can be a valuable tool.
Yeah, definitely.
For a wide range of creative professionals.
I would agree with that.
From photographers and videographers to graphic designers and digital artists.
Absolutely.
Anyone who's spending a lot of time in those kinds of programs.
Yeah, I think if you're doing any kind of creative work on a computer,
it's worth checking out.
The Tourbox Lite could be a really useful addition to your workflow.
Before we move on, let's just touch on like some of the technical aspects that he mentioned in his review.
Sure.
He said the Tourbox Lite is about 111 millimeter by 106 millimeters and 39 millimeters thick.
Okay.
So it's pretty compact.
Yeah, that's small enough to fit comfortably on your desk.
Right.
Without taking up too much space.
And it weighs around 329 grams.
Okay.
So it's got a nice heft to it without feeling too heavy.
Yeah, I like that. I like a device that has a little bit of weight to it.
But this feels more substantial.
Exactly. Yeah, it feels more premium.
And it's made from a combination of PC and ABS plastic.
Okay.
With a laser textured matte finish.
I see.
So it should be pretty durable.
Yeah, those are good materials for a device like that.
And it connects via USB.
USB, yeah.
Which ensures a stable signal.
Right.
Although some users might miss having a wireless option.
Sure, yeah. Some people prefer the convenience of wireless.
Right.
But I can understand why they went with a wired connection for this.
For stability.
For reliability.
Well,
yeah, you don't want any lag or dropouts.
Especially if you're doing professional work.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored the Tourbox Lite's features.
Right.
Its pros and cons.
We've talked about how it can benefit different creative workflows.
And even delved into some of the technical details.
Yep. We've really given it a thorough examination.
But ultimately the question is,
right.
What does this all mean for you, the listener?
That's the important question.
Have you ever struggled with those tedious clicks and menu navigations?
Yeah.
While editing photos or videos?
Everyone has.
Have you ever wished for a more intuitive and tactile way to interact with your creative software?
Like something that just feels more natural.
Or maybe you're just curious about new tools.
Always good to be curious.
That can help you push your creative boundaries.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Tourbox before?
What stands out to you about this device?
Do you think it could be a useful addition to your workflow?
Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
We're always eager to get feedback from our listeners.
And if you're in the market for a new tool to enhance your creative workflow.
Maybe you're tired of wrestling with your mouse and keyboard.
You know those repetitive tasks?
Yeah, those little things that eat up your time.
The Tourbox Lite might be worth checking out.
Definitely.
Remember, we're just one subscriber away from hitting our goal of 50.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So if you enjoyed this deep dive
into the Tourbox Lite,
hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
It really helps us out.
Yeah, your support means the world to us.
And it keeps us motivated
to make more deep dives
into the world of everyday tech.
This has been Everyday Tech Explained.
We hope you enjoyed exploring the Tourbox Lite with us.
As always, we encourage you to do your own research.
Definitely.
Read more reviews, watch some videos.
See the Tourbox Lite in action.
And most importantly, consider your own needs.
And your workflow.
Right, because it might not be the perfect tool for everyone.
But for a lot of people,
it could be a game changer.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.
Keep creating.
And keep pushing those creative boundaries.